Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Open Network User Group podcast. I'm Mark Tierney. I'm ONUG's CTO. Welcome to 2023. Some places it's the year of the rabbit, I think. Here it's the year of the collab, and we're going to be talking about what's going on in ONUG collaboration. Specifically, we're going to be talking about things that are happening in the Automated Cloud Governance Working Group. But first, ONUG Spring 2023. It's going to be a hybrid event. It's going to be in Dallas, Texas at Union Station, May 17th. and 18th. God, it just feels like we wrapped up fall. We're already getting ready for spring. It's going to be fun. It's going to be in my hometown. So it's going to be awesome. So you should be there. Join the ONUG community of Global 2000 companies, enterprise architects, cloud providers, and thought leaders. As we demonstrate the tenets of enterprise cloud, go to onug.net to register for this event today. Use promo code Mark's Podcast, and you'll save a truckload of money. I think it's like 30% off. And you'll be able to sign up. You can do it now. So jump in there. Hey, listen, while you're on the ONUG website, go to onug.net. You can check out a lot of what we're talking about by going to onug.net and clicking on the collab button, and then see all the different working groups. You'll see exactly what's happening in automated cloud governance and all the other fun teams. So come check it out. All right. Joining me today for today's podcast, I've got Peter Campbell. Peter is the Senior Director of Cloud Security and Engineering and Strategy at Cigna. And I've also got Michael Thomas Clark. Michael is the co-chair of the Cloud Native Security Working Group, and he's also the cloud architect at BData. Peter, if I didn't say it, Peter is the co-chair of the Automated Cloud Governance Working Group. So, hey guys, thanks for jumping on with me today.
Yeah, thank you, Mark.
Hey, Mark. Hey, Peter.
Yes. So,
hi, Michael.
Peter, I mean, you're on point. You guys are both working group chairs. So first, I'll just say thanks to each of you for the what you do and what you bring to the table. We had a pretty big year last year and moved the ball quite a distance in automated cloud governance. And for those that are new to checking out an ONUG podcast and maybe don't know what happens on the collaboration, maybe I'll take a minute and ask each of you to talk a little bit about what happens on your team. So Peter, automated cloud governance, kind of started, almost 2 years ago with powerhouse of executives that wanted to solve some pretty big problems. Do you mind just taking a minute and talk about what you're looking to accomplish in ACG?
Yeah, no, thank you, Mark. One of the things that we're really excited about is what we've developed as part of the Automated Cloud Governance Working Group is the Cloud Security Notification Framework. And really simply, all that is a way for us to standardize the way that multi-cloud security events and alerts are being managed by the SOC at large enterprises. So, most large enterprises have multiple cloud providers, and we're looking to kind of make multi-cloud easier and safer to consume.
Yeah, it's interesting. You bring up multi-cloud, and one of the things that we talk a lot about on kind of in the depths of ONUG around messaging and try to think about how do we present some of these concepts correctly. And there's actually been some pushback around the concept of multi-cloud. Some people are saying don't even talk about multi-cloud. It's a little scary to talk about multi-cloud. Let's just talk about enterprise cloud. And so actually ONUG is actually changing some of its messaging around that. And yet I can't help, like, under the hood, we still need to do stuff to get enterprises ready for the day when they really can consume multiple clouds at the same time, right? Not too many are. Is that fair, Peter? I mean, do you feel like there's a lot of enterprises out there that are truly doing multi-cloud right now?
Well, I think it's just a natural occurrence, right? Through mergers, acquisitions, right? As we see, the business environment has been incredibly busy. And I think as companies are acquiring other companies, it just naturally, other cloud providers come with it. So sometimes it's not by choice, Mark, but eventually, most large organizations are going to have to manage, multiple clouds. And that's, companies the size of the one that I work for, Cigna. I mean, we have, more than one major cloud provider. So And when you think about the amount of complexity involved, as you know, each of these cloud providers have multiple cloud services that need to be secured, and we need to be able to have full visibility as to any security events that are occurring with any of those cloud services. So it can be quite a daunting task to secure not just one cloud like AWS has over 90 services that an organization would be responsible to have secure prescriptive guidance around, and also create a full security landing zone to be able to create detection rules and also have automated incident response playbooks to address anything bad that might happen in cloud, and then multiply that times 2 or 3 or 4 based on the number of cloud providers you have, and then the requirement to have multiple teams that are skilled in each of those cloud platforms. It's a very large undertaking for security engineering teams.
Nice. Well, and that's kind of what ONUG is about, is positioning all those different teams to to get ready for what's coming. Not always what is, but what's coming. Michael, you're the working group that you manage. I joke a lot. I poke fun at you a lot. There's a lot of heady people, you included, that are in the cloud native security team, and you guys focus a lot on theory, and put a lot of work last year into zero trust. Why don't you give the audience just a little bit of background about what where you've been shining the spotlight last year?
Well, thanks, Mark. I think what you really mean to say is that we are the group with big heads, and that's why we've invited. That's why we get along so well with Peter, and why we invited, because he's got the most prominent head of all of us, and it's full of
he brings us down to earth.
There's no hair,
and it's unlike mine. It's not falling out; it's gone. And sorry, Peter, but
hat. That's why I go hat all the time.
I know you did that on purpose, but so that we don't just sound like a bunch of guys talking about that kind of stuff. Going back, actually, I want to go back to the multi-cloud thing for just a second, because I think that's a sort of a really interesting kind of, if you will, watershed moment. It was for me anyway, when we were talking in the Cloud Native Security Working Group about, what's this multi-cloud thing a few years back, like maybe 5 years ago. We were, so that shows you how long I've been around, but we initially, were thinking, oh, well, somebody's got Microsoft, what was then Office 365. They've got Salesforce.com. They've got AWS. So they're multi-cloud, right? And yet, as the industry developed and evolved, and as that term came into greater usage, it started to mean different things to different people. And so oftentimes today, people think, well, it means, can I run my workloads? Can I run a given workload on, major and minor CSP platforms? And so right there, that's sort of a good metaphor for how the lingo can throw us off. And so, we have to understand what we even mean by a cloud. So, enterprise cloud works for me because it takes all that, it makes ambiguity.
Yeah, it simplifies it, right? Like, you don't have to worry, because the way you were describing it is the way I feel like most organizations where they are today. Sure, I may run office automation in one cloud, and I may run some enterprise applications in another cloud. But we sort of haven't achieved even still, that nirvana that people were talking about, 10, 15 years ago about, okay, now I've got an enterprise class application X, and I can run X on AWS, on Microsoft, on Google, and run it in an arbitrage environment. I'm getting the best price on my infrastructure, per unit time, and all this. Like, no, nobody's doing that yet. Like, that's not happening.
That's right. And yet, for the vast majority of compute instances in America, if you will, they're not necessarily the Fortune 500, the Fortune 100 classic workload, right? I mean, Peter's world is different from the small and medium sized businesses so they will think of multi-cloud differently, but it almost doesn't matter because they've got the same kind of security challenges at the end of the day, right? They need to worry about resiliency. They need to worry about integrity and data exfiltration and so on. So whether you're running something on platform as a service, infrastructure as a service, software as a service, you've got these same fundamental, cloud native security. You are running your business in the cloud. The startup I'm involved in is a data sciences startup, and it runs everything out of a single cloud provider, and it's cloud first, it's cloud native. We never did have an on-premises.
Sure.
So,
well, I mean, it's obvious from this discussion that we spent hours in prep for this discussion, because you just gave the perfect segue into where we really need to go.
I ignored your question, by the way.
No, it's okay, because look, what's happening, and the things that Peter's team is working on, and quite frankly, Michael's team, the cloud native security team, is kind of jumping in on. We get a little bit of cross is it cross collaboration or cross contamination? Like we'll figure that by the end of the year.
Yes, a little both.
Yeah. So, but the reality is regardless how those workloads operate, we get security alerting coming in from multiple vectors. We're kind of focused on, we are focused on cloud security provider alerts and messaging, but the scope of that is going to increase over this year and include appliance vendors and other third parties. So regardless of what those workloads are, Peter, the SecOps teams, what I would affectionately call the room, right? They got to deal with it, right? And so that's what we're neck deep in the ACG Cloud Governance working group, and what we're doing in the Cloud Security Notification Framework. So, with that said, where we've landed here recently is, we've created this canonical data model. We've got CSPs publishing into the canonical data model, and this year is going to be all about piloting and putting enterprises in a position to sort of take this thing for test drives where it can. And one of the things that you and another large enterprise, I won't name them because I'm not sure I can at this point, but all you have to do is join the collaborative and you'll find out who all these people are. You'll see them online on onug.net. But there's a big push, quite frankly, to make the initial consumption of CSNF kind of easy, right? And we brainstormed around, what easy is a relative term, of course, but what are some of those design patterns that we could use to exercise CSNF and the Cloud Security Notification Framework, and do it with some design patterns that would be more easily consumable by enterprise consumers. We've come up with 4 or 5 different design patterns that share, kind of a similar taxonomies from the perspective of, I guess, landing zone, security landing zone commonality might be the right way to say it. Feel free to correct me, Peter.
No, that's right, Mark. Yep.
Yeah, and so we decided, a lot of these organizations are using Splunk, to do a number of things. Hey, why not start there? And you've jumped in and rolled up your sleeves, and so what I thought we'd do now is just let's take a minute and take a look at what this design pattern looks like. It's all work in progress, but that work in progress is actually gone pretty quickly over a matter of 6-7 weeks. I believe. So why don't we take a second and take a look, Peter, and let you describe what this feels like.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, thanks, Mark. I don't know if you can see my screen, but one of the things that I put up here, it's kind of a little bit of a spoiler alert. You can kind of see part of the solution that we're envisioning here. But as Mark said, large enterprises have made high dollar investments in building out their security landing zones, and I think one of the things that we try to do with multiple clouds, and I've got several of them listed here, is that we try to manage security as an abstraction across each of those clouds, while and not depending on any particular security product of the native cloud provider. So, for example, AWS has a product called Security Hub, but that's really focused solely on AWS. So, what the large enterprise needs is an abstraction, CNAP type platform to protect multiple clouds through really a single pane of glass, so to speak. But think of that as automated. And as we've been working through this over the past 18 months or so with the cloud security notification framework, one of the big challenges was, okay, we really need to meet large enterprises, where they are today, if there's any hope to standardize security event alerting through a standardized canonical data model across all of these different cloud providers. So how do we do that? So what we've come up with is using what's called a Splunk technology add-on for CSNF. So this is what really the flow of this solution that we're going to be piloting and then demoing this in Houston, I believe, in May, right, Mark? Is when the spring event is.
Yeah, Dallas.
Dallas. Sorry about that.
Yep.
Yeah, Dallas
No, it's okay.
In May. And when this flow here shows that all of these different cloud providers are already sending security events and telemetry into Splunk, and Splunk is a large enterprise SIM and SOAR platform essentially that many large companies are using. It's not the only one, but it's a very common one. So this is what we're starting with. And the idea here is to do a mapping of each of the different source types. So in Splunk, a Splunk telemetry feed basically maps over to a source type in Splunk that is then normalized to Splunk's common information model. What we then do is add some field aliases to that through this CSNF Splunk app that you can see right in the middle of the screen that will allow security events to be standardized across all of the inputs that you see on the left, so that that the SOC and the SOAR teams can apply a consistent set of detection rules and playbooks to events, regardless of where they originate from. So that's kind of like the big, the big picture idea that we're all kind of building around today. What I can do is I can give you another sneak peek here. I guess we've got one of these source types mapped into Splunk today. I can show you in this lab environment. Let me pull this up here. Within Splunk, you can see there's a Splunk CSNF app here. Go to applications. What I'll just jump in to look at the raw events. So what you're seeing here is a guard duty test event that's been sent into Splunk, and it's been processed by our CSNF Splunk technology add-on, and the CSNF canonical data model values have been mapped here to these attributes. So where you can see for CSNF decorator risk has a risk level of 2 that corresponds to what guard duty would call severity, and so on. So we're mapping each of these different elements into the CSNF CDM, and then as we're able to, at that point, process detection rules and security automation around these fields that are standardized, regardless of the type of event or where the event originates from. So that's this is really just showing the AWS field mappings that we've done, but we're going to be doing this for additional providers that you see here: GCP, Azure, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, OCI, and then Cisco and others. So it's something we're really excited about. It's early on. We're really in the initial release of this, and we are actually working with Splunk as well on this. And our goal is to, have this technology add-on certified and available on Splunk base for everyone to use.
Peter, this is fantastic. So thank you for doing that. And again, so Splunk is just it's just one example of this design pattern. I mean, the truth is there's other applications that can be used in a similar way, right? I mean, uh, virtually any SIM, SOAR, kind of.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Exactly, Mark. We think that this same sort of design pattern can be applied to Google Chronicle and Amplify. I mean, there's Splunk has a notion of a common information model. Chronicle has a unified data model, which is very similar. We would map the unified data model attributes. In this example, we would do this similarly in Chronicle to the CSNF, and the same with Azure Sentinel. So those are the three that we're targeting. We're starting with Splunk, but we plan to expand over to Google Chronicle and Azure Sentinel, or Microsoft Sentinel, I guess it's called.
Yeah, and I know. So I think the product manager for Microsoft is actually on our team, works side by side with us, and she's very excited, to be getting that part done. So yeah, I just see this thing, kind of starting to snowball a little bit, and all of this is great, but the value prop on all this, because we don't just do stuff so we can manipulate, so we can process data, Michael. Like that's what we do, right? We do data processing. No, we're actually trying to do something important, all right, and reduce toil, right?
Right, and it's not, it's important to recognize, as we all do, but as our erstwhile listeners might be interested in knowing, that this is really one of the rare kind of happenings in the industry where you have, no kidding, you have real live commercial vendors and real live customers actually collaborating together in ways that I don't think you see very often, if at all. You might see them in certain other organizations that have been like an open organization. I won't name names, but certain collaborative efforts over the years, maybe the IETF or something, which is more easier to comment on. But the point is that this is a microcosm. This project is a microcosm of what ONUG is all about, right? And for me, it points out the opportunity that exists for folks on both the consumer side and on the vendor side. And well, we know the vendors will always be interested because they want to influence things and they want to sell products. But here, consumers, people at mid-sized companies, the Global 2000, larger companies have the opportunity to work side by side with vendors and get their use cases and their requirements heard and worked through. And so, no, I'm not being paid to do this advertisement for ONUG, but that's where I get the value out of the working groups. When we talk about zero trust as one aspect of this in the working groups, we're really putting our heads together and we're saying, how do we help people make sense out of this thing that has just exploded over the last few years? And so that's one example. And this is another example of how you can take this collaborative effort between vendors and producers and consumers and really make something worthwhile for the whole industry.
Yeah, and it's really been a collaboration, right? With sorry, Mark, I was just gonna I think you mentioned Preeti Krishna from the Microsoft Sentinel product owner. We've got Josh Hammer, who's field security architect for Oracle. There's just so many people that we can name that have been instrumental in making this happen. So yeah, it's been a total group effort.
So, Michael, point people to the right place. Like we've our Git, we've got a Git site where they can go learn more and see more about what we're doing in CSNF. Is that?
Yeah, right? Yeah. We have a ONUG Git repository. You can go to ONUG/CSNF to see all of our code. It's right there, hanging out to be leveraged. And we have a starter kit that we've created. It's all like any other open project. It's in development. We have a Netlify site that, csnf.netlify.app, and that will give you a sense of, will introduce you to the subject and to the product. And this is sort of how we're proceeding now. It's really our first big effort at going from project to product in the open space. So we're really excited about it, and we've got a lot of people from across the industry.
Yeah, you've both made the point that there's some real power behind this. It's not just two guys and their dog trying to get something off the ground. We got some pretty amazing enterprise consumers and suppliers all working to make this happen. So thanks for all that. Michael, take a minute and maybe bring everybody up to speed on what the Cloud Native Security team was doing last year with Zero Trust. See, I wasn't going to let you off the hook on this.
No, I figured we were coming back to it. And this is a call for arms, a call of arms around each other and for more bodies. You can never have enough big heads in a room, and in this case, what we're trying to do is really grapple. We have been for the last year and a half, really, from just before the executive order on Zero Trust. But as it became clear a couple of years ago, in the middle of the pandemic, that people were really taking Zero Trust was going off in a much more considered direction. I mean, I don't know about you, Peter, but I think it's been out there as a concept for about 10 years. If we really look back, right around
over 10 years. Yeah, the Forrester paper by John Kindervag, right?
That's right. When was that? 2009 or something, or earlier. But as people started to, right around the time I recall of the Great Recession, so-called, people were saying, perimeter security is and not just architect, egghead types, but I'm talking about, I was having conversations with engineers who were saying perimeter security isn't working anymore. So we went through that whole Sturm and Drang about, well, what do we do instead of perimeter security? And the ideas that were being floated really amounted to not a single solution, but a framework of solutions, right? So you started to hear things, especially as DevOps and DevSecOps started to have an impact. Never trust, always verify. Well, what does that mean? I mean, how can you never trust some component that you're putting in? Well, you have to build a mechanism for verification. Assume breach. This is another sort of front and center principle. So this framework began to be built around, never trusting, verifying, assuming breach, looking not simply to prevent access to data, but specifically to prevent the exfiltration of data. And the big question became, okay, we've got this nice theory. Mark said we were people who like theory, but at some point we have to the theory has to meet the rubber of the road. And so playbooks, practical implementation, how do you actually make this framework of seemingly grand and great ideas really work for people? And again, just like the definitions around multi-cloud, the right answer really depends on your specific circumstances. And the fact that here we are after 10 years of talking about Zero Trust, still trying to solve the problem of what's the right way to do it. And the tell is the Biden administration, without getting into politics, comes out a year and a half ago and says, you know what? We're going to require all government agencies, we're going to require the military, the people who defend us, we're going to require them to implement Zero Trust. Well, how are they doing that? And Peter, you and I have had extended conversations about this. They're serious. This isn't just another government program that's going to flop and be looked at 10 years from now as a bunch of hot air and a failure. So we're trying to take this experience, and it's almost an unmanageable amount of information, but we're trying to take that and we're trying to parcel it into bite-sized chunks that can be consumed and rinsed and repeated across various enterprises.
Yeah,
And to that end, I mean, the team produced several blogs in the Cloud Native Security blog. Again, you get to that stuff on ONUG.net, and then we did a podcast series against all of those. So come check out all that content. I'm also pushing these guys. I want to do some work on 0 day, and so look, be ready for some. Yeah, be ready for some content around 0 day stuff. So that's exciting. One thing that's been fun is having the Cloud Native Security Working Group start, playing with automated cloud governance, and now that's worked in both directions. So again, a lot of powerhouse people there. One thing I noticed, Michael, was when we're looking for definitions on zero trust, and you mentioned perimeters, and the perimeter wasn't working anymore. I noticed it wasn't helpful when I just said, our response to that was creating 8,000 new perimeters.
But, well, I mean, I think that's what we do. I mean, between microservices and DevOps and DevSecOps and containers. I mean,
I'm just trying to keep it real, guys. Like that's all I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
So
we're going to make you read the Luz Rice's container security book, and then you'll be crying. You'll be crying. You'll be wanting to join our team for remediative learning.
Nice. All right. Well, I want to thank you both for being here. That's it. Just a quick update. I mentioned a couple of times about the collaborative. Again, if you want to find out more about the ONUG collaborative and everything that's going on all the different working groups, go to onug.net today to check it out. And I'm going to give a big plug for our newest working group is Policy as Code. Talk about a hot topic and a hot working group. Some of you heard me say before, Policy as Code, more questions than answers. But that's why we're here. We're going to solve a lot of those questions and create answers, and really do with Policy Code what ONUG did with the SD-WAN space. We're going to bring a little order to the chaos, so enterprise consumers get real value around what they want from their Policy as Code strategy. So with that, once again, thanks, Michael. Thanks, Peter, for joining us. We will see you everybody on the next ONUG podcast. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Cheers.